Hello and welcome back to Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. Hey guys, today I have some help for you in trying to figure out how to help the world. Dr. Paul Zeitz is joining me. He has written a book called Revolutionary Optimism, 7 Steps for Living as a Love-Centered Activist. And since so many of us are searching for the ways in which we can contribute to this world to try and right the wrongs, to balance the scales of justice, and to bring more equity into the world towards all, he was the perfect guest to invite here today. He is an epidemiologist. He is a physician. He's a preventative medicine physician, I believe, but he's also an author. And he is someone who is one of the founders of the Unify movements. And he is somebody who believes that we can compassionately act through politics to bring about the changes that we need within our structures. So he's somebody who's taking steps towards helping us with the overreaching power structures that we have that have kind of messed us all up, but we don't know what to do. Dr. Paul Zeitz is here to try and help you figure out what to do. But first, let's get the housekeeping out of the way, because I always have to do it at the top, because apparently people won't listen when it's all at the bottom. I'm Alane. You can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading or a life coaching session. You can find me here at Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. My YouTube channel is cronecast at The Rising Moon. The video for this interview will be up on there, but I'm always on all the audio services as well under Logical Magic. And then I have a Patreon with Monday through Friday daily spiritual advice that you can join for the low cost of $5 a month. And that will be linked in the episode notes or in the description box down below. Let's get going talking to our guest today, Dr. Paul Zeitz. Dr. Zeitz, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here with you.
I'm so glad that you were able to join me. I really like the philosophies that you are putting forth. Can you tell me a little bit about love-centered activism, because it really caught my attention? What does it encompass and how do we go towards it?
Great. Thank you. We're living in this auspicious time in human history. We're at a point of time where we're facing complex, what I call super crises that are affecting us locally, in our communities and our nation, and globally. Those include things like the climate emergency and democracy collapsing and the economic inequality, et cetera, et cetera. And all those things are creating a lot of anxiety and despair, actually, for many people, and including myself. And so several years ago, I realized I needed to figure out a way to cope during this time that we're going through. And so I've been working for years now to define revolutionary optimism, which is really a cure or an antidote for hopelessness, despair, cynicism, and skepticism. And it really is designed to awaken the love force, if you will, that is within each of us, so that we can each find our own way to serve. And it lays out, 7 steps for as a journey of exploration, of learning, of evolving, so that we can together bring forward the kind of transformation that I think many people yearn for.
I agree with you. I think that there is, when we want to see evidence of hopelessness and despair in this world, we can look to the streets of any major city of people who have fallen victim to addiction because they're trying so hard to escape their feelings, and because we do not have robust social programs in place to try and help people cope with their mental health and cope with their suffering and cope with the world around them. And one of the cures for hopelessness is actually activism. It is one of the things that nothing will get you out of the doldrums more quickly than taking steps towards making the change that you can. And it will build momentum in your life, and then you will start to feel more hopeful when you start participating in something that is trying to make the world a better place. And I'm always trying to help people find their life's purpose. That is a key element of life's purpose. And what Dr. Zeitz is talking about is connecting us to our divine guidance to find the path that we are most meant to contribute to. And everybody has different gifts. I mean, there can be an accountant out there who can really contribute in managing the money of a nonprofit, for instance. It does not have to look like holding signs and marching in streets, although there is a place for that in activism. There is a way to be an activist just using the skills that you personally have already, and you may not be thinking of it that way. Dr. Zeitz, can you tell me a couple of the steps that are outlined in your book, please?
Fantastic. I feel like you are a revolutionary optimist, the way you're talking and sharing your perspectives. It's very much aligned with the teachings and the stories in the book. There are 7 steps, and the first 3 steps are really for each person as part of their journey to explore. The first one is it's go time. And that starts off with like waking up every day and asking the question, how can I serve today? And that includes like self-care or caring for a loved one or caring for children or grandparents or whatever, or caring for a neighbor. That counts as love-centered activism.
Mhm.
Taking care of your home and cleaning it up and making it beautiful for yourself or your family. All those things count. And you can extend your love-centered actions to include actions in your community and our world as well. So that's all available to everyone. But it's a daily choice to wake up and pursue those things.
And,
And I also, in step one, I also kind of invite people to look at the future and imagine future generations in whoever you want to imagine, a grandchild, a child, or someone imaginary in the future that is talking back at you and thanking you and acknowledging you for everything that you've done and everything you're going to do as a way of empowerment. So that's step one. Step two is self-liberation. It's about understanding how our mind works. It's about doing that inner work to understand that we have this thing called what I call an inner dragon within us. That's part of our psyches, and we have the power and we have tools where we can tame the dragon and we can learn to control it so that it's not controlling us, so that we can make the best choices, not based on fear or anxiety, but rather on hope and inspiration. So there's some tools in the book around that. Step three is called accessing unified consciousness, which is, I think you and your listeners understand that there's another realm of awareness, which some people call unity consciousness or unitive consciousness or Jesus consciousness or whatever people
or the
call
collective
it.
consciousness is
Collective consciousness is a common way of describing it. Many people don't even know that that exists and that they can access it. So I lay out a set of stories and practices that show that everyone has had those experiences of collective consciousness. Sometimes we have it when there's a birth of a child or at a funeral, we feel a sense of collective consciousness. Or sometimes when we're looking at nature or when we're doing sports. There's different ways that people experience that. So my idea for step three is really knowing that you can access it. And then like you go to the gym and work out to build your muscles, build the muscle of being able to access that and then learning how to deploy it when you need it. So there are circumstances in my life as an activist and a movement builder where I get caught up in a situation and I need to lift myself out of that current circumstance, that whatever is happening, and remind myself that I'm part of this broader collective consciousness, as you said.
Well, and you're
Yeah.
pointing out something really, really important, which is that we are the catalyst within our own lives. That if you wish to see change in the world around you, if you're dissatisfied with the way things are going, if you begin to change things within your life will change. And that's what it takes on a personal level for absolutely everyone, is to embrace the idea that change is a friend. We have been taught to fear change on a societal level as something bad. It means you're losing something. No, no, no. Change is the way things get better. It is literally the only way they can get things better. And so you have to embrace the idea that changing things is for the betterment of all and for the betterment of yourself. And one of the easiest ways to stop feeling as if nothing you do matters is to begin participating in simply trying to make something better. It might be donating to a food bank. It might be joining a nonprofit. It might be volunteering even once a year. Start making a difference. And there is something that is momentum energy that making one change begins to, it's the butterfly effect. Butterfly flaps its wings. And there is the idea that everything begins to change. We have such a negative idea around the idea of change, but we can change everything. You use the word revolutionary, and revolution does not mean blowing things up nor shooting people. It means changing things. And we can do that completely nonviolently. We can do that in a way where we stop participating in the systems that are causing so many problems. As for instance, buying less is one of the things that can start changing this this very greed-centered world. That is part of what is contributing to economic disparity. And one of the things that is making so many people suffer. I read a statistic, I'm going to share two statistics here. Half of people in the United States worry about being able to afford their housing. And 1 in 4 children in the United States of America will suffer food insecurity within the next year. Please think about that. We are one of the wealthiest countries in the entire world, but we have kids regularly going to sleep, not certain they're going to get up and have breakfast. And we have the power to help change that if we make the choice to go towards our change. So sorry to co-opt that there, but please continue with your steps. I love your steps. They're awesome.
No, thank you for your eloquence and for your enthusiasm. And I agree with everything you said. And in self-liberation, step 2, I do talk about the opportunity that we have to do what I call shape-shifting. We can experiment with a certain set of actions for a period of time and see if it fits what is our calling and whether it energizes us or it drains us. And then we can evolve and we can keep until we find that way of serving that is most resonant with who we are or who we're becoming. And so I think that's part of what you were talking about with that we have to change. Shape-shifting is reality, right? Nothing is static. Everything's always evolving, including us. The second half of the book really does get into what I call imagineering, like visioning. What is your radical imagination for what you want the world to be? Like, I think what you're saying is you want the United States to be a country where no child has food insecurity. You want to have a country and a community where no person is worried about housing and being able to afford a roof over their head. And I believe that we can do better. I believe that
it's the world. It's global for me. It's not simply the United States.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to be talking to you from the United States. So that we start at home. We start at home. Think globally, act locally is the idea.
Agreed. And so step 6, I think this is where you want to get to, is sparking peaceful revolutions. And I do clarify a distinction that between evolutionary transformation or evolutionary change, which is the normal, like everything's always changing and evolving, and there are moments or flashpoints in human history where revolutionary transformation is possible. And I believe that that is what is happening now. We're already seeing a violent revolution unfolding on our streets globally. And we're seeing the economic inequality, the poverty that you're describing. All those things are part of a violent revolution that is getting worse and worse. And everyone is feeling the stress and anxiety about that. And I'm advocating for a countervailing force, if you will, of a peaceful revolutions here in the United States and around the world. Because the systems of racism and extractive capitalism that you were referring to are global in nature. And so we can't just limit ourselves to our own country. This is really a global window of opportunity that we're in. We really are at a crossroads. Humanity has to really make a choice, whether we're going to go down a path of destruction and suffering and possible extinction, or we're going to shift gears. We're going to heal the wounds of the past, the systems that oppress, the caste systems, and we're going to create new ways of being together, and we're going to create a path of repair and healing. And I'm on that track, and I'm inviting you and your listeners and as many people as we can to rise now, to mobilize. This is the time. We're at that crossroads. We have to make the choice. We have to rise to this moment in history that we are blessed or cursed, however you want to think about it. I think we're blessed, because we're living at this amazing time where we have the solutions. We just don't have the political will yet because people are not rising yet. And like you, I agree with you 1,000%. People have to rise in whatever way they choose. We do need like 3.5% of the population to get out on the streets and disrupt and interrupt the status quo. That's based on global study of peaceful revolutions. And you need a large percentage of the general population who is resisting or cooperating or supporting those folks that are out there on the streets. So we do have to spread the word, if you will, to the entire population. if my sense and the networks that I'm part of, people are feeling the trembling of a peaceful revolution. You're feeling the energy of revolution, and it's whether or not we can harness it on this path of repair and healing. That's the opportunity that we have if we choose it.
Well, and currently we are living in a very like a fear-mongering age where they do try to make us afraid of the idea of change and to make us afraid of one another. And please remember that almost everything that you believe is because you were programmed to believe it by your circumstances. And the whole nature versus nurture thing, we talk about nurturing, and your environment, your social environment where you grew up is part of what leads you to believe and act in the ways that you do. And that questioning those structures is one of the things that will free your mind, free your soul, and free you to the ability to feel powerful within your own life. Because when we're talking about making changes for the better and participating in the idea that we are, you said either cursed or blessed, I say we are tasked. We are asked to make a decision about how we will contribute to this period of history. And you want to be on the right side of history, but who's got the right answers? The ones who are trying to work with compassion. It is not about a political party, and it is not about whatever belief system you ascribe to what is entitled. It is within your heart, it is within your actions, and it is within your power to decide what you will contribute to. But that the first step in making things better is to understand that you have a personal responsibility to yourself and to the world around you. And it is not just towards your family, because you could work like crazy to shore up money and have everything and all the guns in the world and all the food in the world, and it will only keep your small unit safe. If you begin participating in the idea that we are genuinely part of a global community, but if that's too all-encompassing for you, then think about, again, the local things that you can do. You can make a difference, and there is no small contribution in making a change. If you can do just one thing, one of the things that this is getting a little convoluted, but try to think of when Al Gore won the Nobel Peace Prize, and it was a little bit mystifying to people. It's like, what did he do? Well, he made a movie about climate change, and climate change is one of the things that will impact our resources, like access to things like fresh water and eventually food, because when the climate changes, our crops change as well, and it becomes more difficult for them to grow in extreme weather situations. Most wars, most conflicts, most violent revolutions are brought about because people are trying to access and acquire resources. So the thing that you can do to try and make the world a better place is to find the way that you can contribute in whatever way it is. There is no contribution that is too small to begin help building momentum towards change. And one of the things that we need to do is to stop viewing each other as enemies. We all live under power structures that their main goal is retaining power. Do not surrender your identity to a power structure. Claim it as your own and know that the people around you are your potential allies, not your potential enemies. We are encouraged to view each other with otherness. You are something separate than me. But the fact is that we all have something that can unite us. And if we begin to unite, it won't matter what the power structures are doing, because the bulk of the power will shift to the people. And that is one of the things that comes about with radical, revolutionary, peaceful revolution, is understanding you don't have to blow anything up to have everything change. Sorry to have cut you off, Dr. Zeitz. You're very right. This is something I'm extremely passionate about. It's why I went towards this life.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate hearing you speak your truth. It's very inspiring. And just couple quick thoughts. In step 5, which is called Imagineering, I talk about unlocking radical imagination and visions. People all have visions of how they want to see the world be. And it's like, but we're like, as you said, our culture keeps us, we're afraid to share those visions. The more I talk about revolutionary optimism, the more people are sharing their exact same visions that I have, you know? So I think being brave enough to even share your visions. And then you're accurate that we have narratives that are in our minds that we create ourselves, or that we're imprinted from our family, or that our community, our religious leaders, or whoever place in us, and then our broader society. And I do talk about shape shifting of narratives too, and that can be painful and difficult. because you're giving up something. You're giving up a story that you've been living your whole life, and that can be hard to do. So one thing about revolutionary optimism that I want to strongly recommend is that people read the book together in groups, either a book club or a faith-based group or a community group. I really do think each step is a journey, and the practices and the stories in there are worth discussing and co-learning and building friendships too. Deepening friendships as part of this is a really important opportunity with revolutionary optimism.
When we're in an age of isolation, the beginning of lockdown really, what part of why lockdown was, well, again, another like a catalyst within history, is people were then trapped alone with themselves and they couldn't distract themselves from whatever they felt about their lives, whatever they felt about the quality of it. They couldn't get away from their feelings. And there was a great deal of isolation. So one of the things that we want to work around is if you do not have a group available to you or a community available to you, you can read this book and you can start a discussion book on Facebook. You can start a discussion on TikTok. You can be the person who is the person who founds the community if you cannot find one. Do not be afraid to reach out. When this gets into the more woo-woo aspects of what I do, but the collective energy is the right people will be drawn to you. If you take the steps towards it, that energy is trying to come towards you as well. Dr. Zeitz, do you have any communities that you recommend for people to share their thoughts and feelings about the work that you're doing?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think what I'm inviting people to do is so step 7 is called unifying. And it's some of the themes that you talked about earlier about our interconnectedness and coming together. And so we have a movement building platform called #UnifyMovements. That's the website. And it's really what you just said. It's an invitation for people to come together and create a local team, a local chapter, whatever people want to call it. And we're going to support that and offer guidance and tools and any kind of support that we can. And we're also, we have featured movements. We have a lot of stuff is already happening right now, and people don't know about it. And so we're offering pathways of engagement with existing movements if you want to get involved in that kind of thing. So there's different ways, we're creating many different ways for people to take action.
So I'm so glad you have the tools in place because people they become frozen when they don't know what the first step to take is. It is that we are taught that the idea of being a leader it's a very singular thing. It doesn't happen very frequently. You're practically a unicorn. That is not true. You have within you the ability to lead your own journey, and if other people aren't going along with it, you can be the voice that they begin following. But as Dr. Zeitz just mentioned, he has #UnifyUSA and #UnifyMovements. So there are structures in place where if you're like, I'm not a joiner, I'm an introvert, I attract a lot of introverts. If you're an introvert, there are ways to interact on the social media platforms, and they're not all toxic. There are some that are there to do nothing but good. And so there are things that you can reach out for. There are tools that you can begin to reach towards. Rachel Garrett has been on my show a couple of times already. I've been on hers. She's another person who tries to make a big difference. I know she has a Facebook community that really is all about people reaching towards their spiritual connection and their life's purpose as well. Dr. Zeitz, I have a little bit of a out of left field question for you. What is the one thing that you think people need to go towards helping to change now to start changing things?
That's a great question. I mean, I think for each person, they have to figure out what their own priority is. So I really want to honor people's own discernment or own choosing, as you said. I do think every action counts, as you've said. And I do think what people choose to act on matters. And I want to encourage your listeners to pursue their passion and what they're drawn to, as you said. For me, what I've come to realize is that it's time to get at the root cause, the radical root cause of the problem that we're facing in, I think, our country and the world. And that is what as a doctor, we were trained to give a diagnosis and then come up with solutions. And so the diagnosis that I have is that we have what is called constitutional rot. Mm-hmm. The founding document of our country written 237 years ago by white male slave owners, was written in a time and a place where it was okay for one group of people to hold power and oppress other groups of people, including indigenous people, people of color, women, poor white people as well, as part of their power. And we've been living under that framework for all these years. There has been moments of transformation, revolutionary transformation. In 1860, there was a revolutionary transformation after the Civil War. Mm-hmm. In 1920, when the women got the right to vote, that was a revolutionary transformation. During World War II, there were revolutionary transformations. The Civil Rights Movement was a revolutionary phase in U.S. history where revolutionary transformation occurred where Black people became more equal. We're not done with that work, but it was a step forward. And as you said, so I believe right now, 2024, 2025, we're the ones that have to bring forward a political, social, economic revolution, peaceful, love-centered, to recreate our systems to be focused instead of greed and oppression, love and healing.
I think it's an excellent answer. When we talk about the idea that we are trying to base our modern day world on an archaic document in which, people of color were not considered human beings, but rather property, and that women were not considered to have a rich intellectual world, gift of their own, and contributions to make to the society, and were similarly treated as property. Because in my lifetime, it became possible for a woman to qualify for a mortgage. Please think about that. We weren't allowed to qualify for a mortgage. We weren't allowed to own our own property. We had to have the overreaching male authority to try and legitimize anything that we did in this lifetime. Multiple things have changed and brought about a world that you live in and you dwell in that makes your life possible. Change has already been your friend. Please stop fearing it. And then the other thing, because I'm going to answer my own question, is the thing that I would like to see people really give some thought to, because everything begins with one little change, is when we consider one another, stop judging each other as being right or wrong from the start. And then remember that every single person that you meet has within them a consciousness. They have a human dignity. They have their hopes, their fears, their dreams. They suffer as you do. They feel as you do. That to exclude somebody's suffering as mattering, remember, you can be on the other side of that equation really, really easily, so that it also is in your own best interest to begin viewing others, again, as a global community, as a society. And we have lost, with our corrupt political structure, the idea that we as a society are meant to join together, not to argue and who's right and who's wrong. Listen, ultimately, those are things that have to do with what you think will make you safest. And and that's a fear-based thing, and I'm talking about a love-based thing. Love and fear are actually on opposite ends of the energetic spectrum, and many of the things that you have been taught to believe are fear-centered. If you want the world to get better for you too, begin extending compassion even for people you don't agree with, because that has kept us from making meaningful change, from going towards the idea that together, if we look at that cancerous structure of like, hey, you're not even following your own rules any longer. If we look at that structure and we keep trying to participate in it in the way that it has been working, it will not get better. But if we look at one another and say, hey, are you happy with what's going on? Me either. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. We all want things to get better. One of the things that we have to do is start working on that laborious, ridiculously slow machine that is trying to prop up an archaic approach to this world that disqualifies other people from their humanity. And we have a Supreme Court that is trying to go backwards in time and basing law on things from the 1860s when it comes to gender equality. Please understand that this is not about what you've been taught to believe. You were taught to believe by a power structure that's trying to control the way you think. So the first thing I'd like people to do is to imagine you can free your mind from these structures. And the first step is to open that door to the idea that every single person you see has within them the potential to be an incredibly good person working towards the betterment of our entire world. And that if we join together and view each other as allies rather than you occupy this camp and I occupy that camp, and all we ever do is throw barbs back and forth at one another, nothing will change. Nothing will change if we keep doing what we're doing. So stop and abandon the idea that change is your foe, and understand that there are reasons to change your mindset. You will feel better about the world. You will feel less frightened when you start feeling that other people are struggling just as you are. When you start extending compassion towards others, you find that you like yourself so much more because you are experiencing that energy and you are dwelling in it. And the very first thing to do is to remember every single thing that you do can matter if you decide that it will. If you make the choices to go towards meaningful change will come towards us all. And that the only unifying thing that we really need to find is respect for one another's humanity and for their struggles, and to understand that nobody should be going hungry in a world of plenty, and nobody should suffer unduly in a world where medicine in a westernized and an advanced capacity is available. We exclude people and we say it's about their worth rather than a system that is not working the way it's supposed to, because we have a system that says we are all equal and does not treat us as all being equal. So we're already living in a hypocritical time, and recognizing that hypocrisy is not dangerous, it is freeing. Sorry about that. I'm a little bit of a soapbox person around all of this, Dr. Zeitz, and you've been an incredibly good sport about letting me talk. I'm going to throw this back to you. What do you think about what people can do, what the ways they need to think about change are, and what they can embrace as a feeling simply to alleviate that feeling of despair and helplessness and the feeling of futility that has tendency to surround our lives when we try to make changes because we're working in those corrupt structures rather than saying we need to rebuild this machine?
Yes, so those corrupt structures that are systems of oppression, they are alive in our minds, as you have said very eloquently. And that is the opportunity that I see for our healing. And that's why the central idea of revolutionary optimism is self-liberation is the fuel and the pathway for our collective liberation. And so the opportunity is that if we get a critical mass of us that are living love-centered lives, that are taking love-centered action, and every action counts, literally, as part of this movement and this revolution of love, then we can, that can lead to a transformation that leads to a healing of our social, economic, and political systems. And I hope that we can have this happen as fast as possible. One of the things that you talked about was how we relate to each other. And I wanted to just quickly share that step 4 of revolutionary optimism, which you can go to revolutionaryoptimism.com. Now I'm a salesman. But step 4 is called peace crafting. And I created a new word because I wanted people to get excited. Like, what is that? And peace crafting is a 4-part approach to how we relate to each other. The first is being a listening friend. As you were saying, like, sit with curiosity and just listen to the other person, even if you totally disagree with them. People respond. We're mammals. We're live animals, and we respond. We relax, and we get more vulnerable and open up when we feel like we're being listened to. So, being a great listening friend is a practice that I offer. Then it was the next part of it is embracing multiple points of view. Like, I have my point of view, and you have your point of view, and this person over here has their point of view. So acknowledging that my point of view is only my point of view, and that it may not be the right point of view. There might be multiple points of view, and maybe there's something to learn and to evolve out of multiple points of view. I find that many people are stuck in an idea that it's my idea or your idea, and it's a battle between one or the other. As a registered independent, I've never bought into a set of ideas that someone tells me that that's what my ideas are, you know? Like, I want to be free thinking. The next part of it is once you have done those things, explore multiple personalities, then you can react in conversation. And I offer practices and ideas about using love speech. What is that? So that's like a practice of training your mind to communicate with your mouth anything that is love centered. And that means counter shaming. It means don't use language that's going to trigger people if you can. Use language that's going to uplift them and heal them and help them see themselves as leaders, as you said. The last part is building trust. And a lot of people think of trust as an on and off switch, like I trust you or I don't. And it has to be that way forever. So I offer a trust-o-meter, a dynamic system of going up or down on trust, and that can happen between two people, and it can happen between two organizations or two neighbors or whatever. The trust-o-meter is a really important idea to open up and take a stand for, I don't trust you now, but I might be able to trust you tomorrow, so that you can create a space of possibility.
Yeah, starting from a neutral position in all interactions and assessing what your response is in terms of acting from a place of how would you wish to be treated, acting from a place of compassion. And we all do absorb narratives, but one of the things that we need to understand is that we have it within our power to become the author of our own story. You can become the hero or the heroine of your own story simply by taking control of the narrative within. And that is one of the things that also brings about change. And if it sounds as if I'm condemning any of the people out there who believe differently than I do, I'm not. I'm just saying that what we're doing isn't working, and that we need to find something different to do so that things will begin to work and things will begin to ease the suffering. Because if we act from a place of fear, fear will always increase suffering, because it causes us to close down and it causes us to exclude. And the easiest way to live a life that will feel better to you, there is a personal reason to do this. This isn't always all about like, think of your fellow man. It is think about how you feel every single moment in your day, as you wake up, as you move through this world, as you walk, as you wake, as you move through this world. It can change for the better if you change how you are talking to yourself about what is possible, the potential intention of other people as well. That there is within everybody a part of us that responds to love, to kindness, to compassion. And that when we approach one another that way, we usually receive it in return. And when we don't, simply walking away knowing that there is no point in that clashing energy. It's like trying to force opposed magnets together. It will not work. You cannot berate somebody into a changed mindset. The Catholic Church has proven that over the course of time. You cannot browbeat people nor shame them into meaningful change. But you can encourage them, you can love them, and you can also participate in the good things of this world. And if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I'm not really into the idea of political activism, then go towards easing the suffering of those around you in the ways that you can. And if you don't have much, then please remember, you're never asked to give more than you can, but you will feel better about this world when you are participating in trying to make something better for another person. Because when we open up our heart, more flows to us as well as from us. Dr. Zeitz, I know you have an appointment a little bit later, so we're going to wrap up here, but I'm so thankful to you for joining us and sharing your view. You mentioned your website. Is it revolutionaryoptimism.com?
Yes, that would be the first place to go to get the
Okay.
latest about the book and to learn about all the resources that we have. We're going to have a journal and workbook available for people that want to go deeper with the book. As an individual or as groups. So that'll be available, and many other opportunities will be there.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, everyone, hope is not a risk. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Go towards hope, and everything in this life will feel more lyrical. It will feel more hopeful. And you too can participate in making this world a better place. And when you make this world a better place, you are by nature making your life something that is better as well. Feel resonant joy, feel resonant connection, and know that you have the power to start enacting the changes that you wish to see in the world. This has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoteric. I'm Alane. You can find me at therisingmoon.com if you want to book me for a tarot card reading or a life coaching session. Cronecast at The Rising Moon on YouTube. Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica on all of the podcast services. And I do have a Patreon if you want to hear me yak every single day, Monday through Friday. I do have tarot draws that help us towards healing and helping understanding our role within this world, because I believe passionately that everyone has a purpose, and if you reach for it, it will reach back for you. Take care, be well, live hopefully.